Hey, welcome back to Friends in Austin. Today I have George Vance McGee on the podcast, and he is a Austinite unicorn. So if people don't know what that means, it means, well, he was born here and raised here. Can you tell me, George, a little bit about, I don't know, your time in Austin, how you feel about it, and how things have evolved?
Yeah, Justin, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, an Austin unicorn is essentially someone that a resident that was actually born in Austin and raised in Austin. And with just how the city's going with the population and all the transplants and people moving here from, geographically wherever, there's just fewer and fewer actual core, Austinites that remember it from. I was born in 81, so 80s, 90s, and of that era. So that's what I'm now proud to carry that moniker as an Austin unicorn.
Yeah, and you were telling me a unicorn story just before we started recording.
So there's so many transplants, back when I was just pre-COVID going to bars and things. Every time I'd meet somebody, ask them where they're from, and they go, "Oh, you're a local?" And they're like, "Oh, what are you, unicorn?" So I just kept hearing that on repeat like a good song. So I finally said, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to dress as a damn unicorn. So I went to Lucy's in Disguise on South Congress, the famous costume shop, and said, all right, turn me into a unicorn. I bought a unicorn horn and got a shirt and wrote on the back on it, Mr. Unicorn, and then just got on my bike, went downtown, started on West 6th, and finally was like, screw it, I'm going to the W. And W was the hot, spot at the time. And so
the W is expensive. And I mean, is there a place in there you can go and like drink?
Yeah, there was a cocktail lounge or whatever. And I just remember there was like one or two, just one really big bouncer. And he kind of looked at me like this with my just unicorn, just drunk and just ridiculousness. And he looked at me and he goes, okay, that makes sense. Come on in. And I just same outfit and just wore it the whole night. I think I ended up getting some girl's number too, but anyway, it was fun. So maybe I should do it again.
Yeah, sounds like a good time to me.
Yeah.
Are you into wearing costumes and stuff?
Occasionally, as adulting, with adulting costumes, you have to use some sort of, intellect. Otherwise, it just kind of looks dumb.
Yeah, I've never seen so much costume wearing as I have in Austin. Are you familiar with Burning Flipside or Burning Man or anything like that?
One of my friends went to Burning Man. I have a cousin who has told me she's been to Burning Man. I've seen photos of it, on social media like anyone else, but I have never actually gone. And
people like to wear costumes there. Yeah.
Yep. Supposedly it's like really off the grid and free form and like a new age modern hippie fest out in the desert.
Yeah. Well, I was flipping through your most recent book and The Nation We Live In on Amazon just before you got here, and I saw that you like to swim naked.
Well, one of the chapters was the chapter was called Clothing Optional, and it was actually an idea for a business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because you've got theme parks and what if there was a business where you could basically swim, clothing was optional, meaning it wasn't required, and you pay an entry level, and then you could swim naked. Maybe there's some, maybe in the country they call them dude ranches, but there was some sort of, business entity park, maybe within the city limits. You pay a fee, swim some laps, suntan naked, if you wanted to. If not, so it was just, maybe supposedly I think I read they've been tried in Europe before and failed. Now you can Google and research that. Well, it was just a kind of a concept idea. Clothing optional was going to be the name of the business.
Sounds like a solid business to me. It reminded me of Hippie Hollow at Lake Travis. Have you heard of Hippie Hollow?
Yeah, my girlfriend and I went to Hippie Hollow one time, and it was great. We did the whole thing, and had gay guys throwing shots at us from the the boat. So, and here's another one. We're like, yes, Jello shot. Sure, it's Saturday. Who cares?
Yeah, I haven't been there yet, but I got a friend that said it's just a good time.
Unfortunately, it's a little rocky. It's not as sandy as you'd think it would be. I wish it was a little beachier. But yeah, it's a good spot. And then obviously, Barton Springs is fantastic as well. But
yeah. So let's go back a little bit to Austin and the changes and everything else. So you've been here a long time. So what changes have you seen, and how do you feel about how Austin is now compared to how it was, I don't know, 20 years ago?
Justin, that's a great question, and Austin is always evolving and changing with that. I think you've got to embrace both of them, and I think it's possible to embrace both the original and the historic and the old school with the new school as well. So just run with it. And as a real estate agent, it helps my business to have more people to work with and assist. And so it's inevitable. It's something, like Darwinism, we just got to evolve, and every day is a new day, and learn how to adapt, embrace it, and do the best you can with it.
That's cool. And that's good to hear from someone who's from Austin, that, you're not really opposed to people moving here. It's just it's a great place. It's a melting pot, and it's going to attract a lot of people because it is an awesome place, and hopefully it attracts cool people.
Yeah, it's great. Diversity is the spice of life. So fresh faces are always good. One thing I do notice, and I wrote about this on my blog, is that Austin is not always, there's a lot of people that move here, but I think people forget that people move away as well, because it's a good sized city. It's a large city, but it's still medium. So after about maybe 3 to 5 years, you've done it. You've gone to the nightlife spots. You've found the cool coffee shop. You've saw that quirky theater. You went to the hill country. You swam in the green belt. And so after a certain amount of time, you've done Austin, and then how many loops do you want to go on? So
that's a good point.
People forget that it's people move away as well.
You can kind of tap this place out as far as, there's only so much to do. It's really not that big.
Right.
And if you're not as into it as some other people, do you want to keep doing those things? Or some people, a lot of people that move here are exploratory. So they come here, they do the thing, then they move elsewhere.
Yeah, or maybe they're in tech, as we're aware. Real estate is a big industry. Government, tech, entertainment. I would say those are our four top industries, at least for work. And yeah, you get a tech person that's making great income. You lease them. They live for a year or two, and maybe they get transferred and go to a different company in another place. So yeah, there's a lot of people who move here, but there's people that move away too. So it happens.
When it comes, so you're a real estate agent. That's your primary job?
Yes.
How long have you been doing real estate?
I have been licensed off and on since 2004. So off and on about 16 years. I'm working on my broker's exam, but and I strictly do residential. And for the majority, that's in central Austin. And one of the things I've noticed is that core central Austin, the land values have gotten very high. And there are a lot of spec builders and new construction that they don't want the house. They just want the dirt.
Yeah.
And with the zoning, Code Next failed, and the zoning hasn't changed. But even as it sits now, they're trying the city in general leans pro density. So they want as many units as possible. But Central Austin, the dirt is very valuable and rising all the time. So as a primary user, or even as an investor, that is one thing you have to remember when you look at the price tag and go, oh, look at this little shack. Why is this $450,000? Well, the dirt's $450. The shack is actually minus $20.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. They're gonna bulldoze it for $10,000, right?
Yeah, they're gonna bulldoze it and probably build one new house with 2,700 square feet. That's and sell it for 1.2, or they'll divide it and do the 2 units. Which, if you're alive and driving around, you'll see those. So the modern bigger ones that are 2,000 feet, and then the back ADUs that are 1,100 square feet. So that is very prominent and in Central Austin and Austin in general.
Yeah, I worked in Central East Austin for a while, and I'd always walk around the block on my breaks. And oh man, I saw houses going up and down constantly. And it's just like you said. You look at the house and you look at the price, and I knew, of course, they're just going to tear that down. But it's like, 'cause who would pay that much money for that? Also, geez, it'd be awesome to own one of those houses and have someone knock on your door and be like, "Hey, you want $500,000 for this little tiny lot in your house that's breaking down?"
Yeah.
But man, it's crazy. Yeah, and some of those new houses they put up, they're really cool. I like Central East Austin and Central Austin, but it's very expensive to live there.
It is very pricey, and but if the folks that live there have lived there for a long time, then their property values are going up, and hopefully they own it free and clear, have a low mortgage, and as long as they can cover the property taxes, then which are awful, then they can afford to stay. But
what was Code Next?
Code Next was an attempt. It failed. So it failed, but
I remember seeing signs for it everywhere. But yeah, go on.
It was an attempt to change the land use code in Austin, and that's something in general that they've been working on and has gone back and forth with should it be on the ballot and does the city have the power to do it? And there's a real power struggle between Austinites, new people, developers, the city, NIMBYs. NIMBYs, not in my backyard people.
Okay.
Just super, just, I don't want anything to change ever.
What about the land code were they trying to change?
I personally think they're leaning towards just pro-density and trying to make the city more urban and bike friendly and, more dense. Yeah. Probably so they can collect more property taxes.
Yeah, because we don't have an income tax.
Yeah. Because if people buy and drive out to the suburbs or to a different county or outside of the city limits, then they lose that revenue and that money. So if a lot they were collecting $8,000 a month in property taxes on gets demoed, built, and now they can tax it on 1.5, then the city's taxes goes up. So don't be confused. I mean, private business is a business. The government is a business. So what I hear the other day, the world, what's our language? It speaks green. Our country runs on money. That's who's always in charge.
Yeah.
Okay. So whether it's Democrat, Republican, Independent, some loony libertarian, our country speaks green. So there you go.
Yeah. So you've been doing real estate for a long time. Seems like you've got a lot of creative outlets. So you've got 3 different books and you put them up on Amazon.
Yeah. The blog, I'm what you call a blog to book author. Mm-hmm. So I started blogging in 2008 at the end of the first recession, and just as a creative outlet while I was, on unemployment, and just kept writing and writing. And then eventually Open Mindful turned into like a top rank blog on Google. I emailed Mountain View and they're like, it's #1, register this. I was like, okay. But then I was talking to a girl and she's like, no one reads blogs. She's like, just turn it into a book. And I went, oh, okay. Can I do that? All right. So I converted it to a book. And that's how my second book, Attractive Tales from Grand Cities, a social memoir in the nation we live in, they follow that creative model where I write a blog, I go till I have enough content. Then when I've got enough, think of a title, hire an editor, hire a designer for the book, and then self-publishing, indie publishing is pretty prominent these days. So I've used CreateSpace, Lulu, and just different self-publishing outlets to get them out there. And Book People has been fantastic to me. They're the state's largest independent bookstore, and they're nice enough to carry all 3 of them. So if you're near downtowns and 6 and Lamar, poke your head in. They're open, so check them out. And the literary community in Austin, it exists. It's not like music, but it's happening.
Mm-hmm. So your first book, Open Mindful, what is that about in a nutshell? What kind of things did you cover?
The concept was to keep an open-minded outlook, and every chapter would kind of reframe back to that. Was that I was worried that I myself, and I sometimes am guilty of this myself, I think all of us are, is we get stuck in our ways, and we get in a rut. We think we want one specific thing, and we close off thought to other ideas and ways maybe our lives can be better. So it doesn't necessarily advocate for people to just to have an open mind and to listen to things. Somebody might say, hey, you want to jump off this 30-foot mountain into the lake. I'm not saying you should do it, but hey, maybe think about it. How deep is the lake? Is it a beautiful day? Is there a cute girl down there? Am I athletic? So just be open-minded to thought and think about things before you just immediately rule them out.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So you were writing for a while, and your blog caught some traction. You turned it into an ebook. How much of a pain was it to get that first one into a book? And then obviously you got it published too. It's at Book People as well.
Yeah, all three of them are on published in stores, and you can buy them, and they're at Book People. And I pitched them to the publishers. I tried to get a literary agent. I tried to find a publisher for it, but man, talk about competitive.
Mm-hmm.
It is just. I was not able to grab much traction, some nibbles. So then at some point you're like, I just got to publish it and let it go.
Mm-hmm.
So I used CreateSpace and Lulu and just published it and got out there, sent emails, marketed it however I could. And it's just a creative outlet. It's more of a passion project than anything. So,
well, it doesn't hurt if those things make a little money,
They, they say supposedly that writing a book is just a good marketing piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's to get you out there, like getting an MBA or some sort of thing like that. But for me, I did it just out of creative fun, and it was good for my brain. It was brain exercise.
Mm-hmm.
People go and work out and it works out their muscles. But writing a book is brain exercise.
You got to organize your thoughts for sure.
Yeah. Or I would just let it rip,
Mm-hmm.
and just, if something was coming to me, I just like paint, just throw it on the screen and then come back and edit it, the next day or not at all.
Mm-hmm.
So just clean it up later.
So what's your second book, Attractive Tales from Grand Cities, a social memoir? Is that you traveling and going to different places or what?
Good question, Justin. I lived in New York City for about 5 years, from 2008 to 2004 to 2008. And a lot of it is just things I remember from living in Manhattan and traveling around and talking to people and partying and sleeping and going to clubs and sitting in Union Square and seeing all different types of.
What did you go to New York for?
I just got bored.
Mm-hmm. And did you do real estate there as well?
I did get a license there.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for City Habitats, but it is a whole different ballgame up there. Yeah, I had a myriad of different fun jobs. I did Hotel Gansevoort. I was the door guy at this celebrity hotel in the meatpacking district. And the first day I was working, I checked in like Adrian Brody, the Oscar guy with the nose, and his mom, and Hugh Jackman would walk past, and it was Nicole Richie when she was anorexic checked in one time. Oh, that was another thing is Us Weekly. Those things are right sometimes. When you're at the grocery store and you're like looking in the aisles and like the sun, and you're like, oh, that's not true. Oh, that would never happen. I was going, those magazines might be right. She does look anorexic.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm sure there's a shred of truth to some of them.
So some of those, there is some validity to them. I know Johnny Depp just lost his thing, but
what did he lose? I've heard some stuff going on with him.
I think he lost his something with Amber Heard. Just messes flying around. He said, she said, but
yeah.
There was some validity to that.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrity gossip. I was like, oh yeah, she could use some help.
So how did you feel about living in New York compared to Austin? I mean, it's quite a bit different of a city.
Walking was nice. You don't have a car. You don't have car insurance. So you just pay for the subways and walk everywhere. So it was healthy. And it was obviously pre-COVID, so you could just mix it up in tight quarters. So I had a blast. Bars are open till 4. So then shoot, you don't go out till like midnight.
I think that's too late.
Huh?
I think that's too late for them to be open.
It is. I felt really sorry for the bartenders, because if you were walking around like in the East Village or something, and like a bar's slow at like 11 or midnight, you're going, oh man, this poor bartender has to be here till 4 a.m. and then close up.
And does anyone wake up the next day and be like, oh, I'm so glad the bar was open for another hour?
I did sometimes. You'd be surprised.
Okay.
Yeah, there were nights that I'd just be kind of single stag man, just kind of, just striking up conversations with cute girls and just be like, oh, nope, striking out, and just being like, oh crap, I'll just I'll go to one more place. Maybe some girl will think I'm cute here. And then the last place you go to, she's like, "Oh, that's interesting." And I'm like, "I live in Hell's Kitchen." She's like, "Okay." And then then you're taking the cab or taking the subway. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, one of Austin's big issues is the fact that the traffic is bad and there's hardly any good public transportation. And we did mention we talked about Prop A a little bit before. Prop A, can you describe what Prop A is?
Well, I think what Prop A was which recently passed, and was pitched and sold to us is, I think, more mass transit. So they're trying to get trains and make more mass transit.
But doesn't it come
popular.
with higher property taxes as well?
Yes, it
does. Which
does.
They're already fucking insane.
Yes. How
much more money do they need?
They, again, goes back to it's about green. That's what the country is about. It's green. And they just want more money for this vision that they have. And will it be successful? I don't know. I personally voted against it. In my forecasting of and being a local of Austin, I envision Austin more as kind of a baby Los Angeles with the culture, the sunshine, the food, the car driving. So if perhaps we could, expand roads, build more roads, and mix up our transportation rather than this Prop A, which to me is trying to make us go be like a New York or a Boston or a Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't foresee changing Texans, kind of love of cars, and whether it's Tesla electric or gas, it's electric, but their desire for transportation that way, it's going to be tough to retrain Texans' minds.
Yeah, I wonder about that. I mean, when I lived in Chicago for about a year. I did really like the fact that you could get on what they call the train. And I mean, you could get all about town pretty easily. I don't like crowded spaces, and I don't like being around people. And I don't like it when people come up and sales pitch me about how they recently got out of prison and they lost their job, because they're sales pitching the entire bus or the train, because no one can get off. It's moving, Right. I mean, and that's like, you hear that speech several times a week, different people, that it's canned, or they're just getting it from this other guy. I don't want to be packed in on a train. I mean, especially with COVID, but I mean, COVID will end eventually. So I guess what I'm getting at here is I have mixed feelings about public transit. Part of it's super convenient. Part of it to me feels dirty and crowded. But also just roads aren't really sustainable. But then is the question, I mean, well, how big do you want things to get? But I think it's not about, I mean, people will come here, I think, no matter what. There's no stopping it. So I feel like they need to make plans, but also I think if I were to vote on Prop A, I may have voted against it just in that, like, you can start doing stuff like that without raising property taxes. I mean, you're already, like you said, they're becoming more dense. They're collecting more property tax based on just the number of people. So why can't you just use that money? I don't know that you need to raise property taxes to make some of these things happen.
That is accurate, Justin. That is a good point. Democrats, for all their wonderful, social causes and, morals and ethics and goodness like that, they're sometimes stereotyped as wanting more government, whereas Republicans want less. And so that is kind of a flaw of our city council, is really overstepping their boundaries, whereas, just a functional, medium-sized, moderate government and municipality would be okay, rather than, it feels like they're going above, adding whipped cream and cherries, and you're like, oh, I just wanted some ice cream. They're like, oh, take some butterscotch, and oh yeah, we need some sprinkles, and bananas, and Reese's Pieces too. And you're like at Amy's Ice Cream, and you're like, how much is each topping? How much do you want, date? What? Come on, this is we're not married yet. What's the deal?
It's the $30 bowl of ice cream.
Yeah. Oh, and this too. Yeah. And we want this for the city. Oh yeah, and a little flying spaceship. Okay, yeah, and a gondola from South Congress to downtown. Okay. What else do we need? Okay. Uber drivers stacked on top of each other. Okay, excellent.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is how it feels. So not everyone knows. I mean, I don't even know the property tax percent here. I mean, I know what I'm going to be paying, which is a shitload. But the difference between buying a house in Denver to buying a house in Austin is you could spend 20% more on your house, and your payment would be, I mean, I'm ballparking these numbers, but it feels like around 20% more you could spend in Denver and have the same mortgage payment that you would have in Austin for 20% less of initial cost.
Yeah, that's a good point. And one of my chapters is in my book says, you should probably move to Denver. It's that is one of the chapters. Like, well, you should probably move there.
Yeah.
And that was one of our philosophies for a long time. When the ACL Austin City Limits was one weekend, now it's due. South by Southwest when it was here, is as local Austinites and unicorns again. People would say, "Yep, have a great time, enjoy your Airbnb. Please don't move here."
And then move to Denver.
Yeah. Have a great time. Wonderful. I'm glad you're passing through and visiting. Enjoy all the things we have. Please don't move here. And that was not effective. Mm-hmm. It didn't work. So once people got the taste of Austin, they wanted to move here. So I think, like you said, we just have to plan for it. It's inevitable, and just embrace it and do the best we can with it.
So, another thing, I saw that you're a huge Alex Jones fan.
Not quite. I think he lives in Austin, Texas.
Yes, he does. I think.
And I think I saw he got kind of heckled at like Lucy's Chicken one time on South Congress or something. I have not run into him at the grocery store. But yeah, there's a fine line between having free speech, like how we're participating today, and with social media and protesting and all those things. I'm definitely an advocate for free speech. But where you run into some trouble, I think, is with knowingly lying and putting in harmful things. It'd be like if you and I or a friend, we consciously knew something was wrong and then regurgitated the evilness of it. So that is probably something I would look at. And there's a way to respect free speech and give that to people, but also monitor it so that it's not harmful and negative.
Yeah.
The El Paso shooter, for example, was inspired by some of Trump's anti-immigrant messaging, and that's awful.
Yeah.
So words can matter. Words can matter,
especially when you have an audience.
Yeah. Words can matter. So use them correctly if you can.
Yeah.
If not, apologize. All right, I won't do that again. Whoops. And so you can make a mistake once, but making multiple mistakes, that's where wisdom comes in. That's where, eventually I'll start getting more gray hairs. But it's what would I tell a younger person? I'd say, go out there, get after it. Like Tim Tebow says, for young people, go for it. You might fail, try, but just don't make the same mistake twice. And that's a good mantra for humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your website, Austin Silent Market, that's your real estate website, and that's where you get. That's basically just represents your business, right?
Correct.
I read what the silent market thing is, but it says that listings that aren't public yet. So what's that all about?
Well, just in the silent market, you're right. It's not my company. It's my dad's and the brokerages. It's a real estate brokerage company. So, but the silent market hook, if you will, is we promote properties that are not on MLS for sale. And some people call them hip pocket. Some people call them coming soon, off market, non-MLS. And it's for some owners that, for whatever reason, maybe they're getting a divorce. Maybe they have tenants in there. Maybe they don't want certain photos on the internet. Maybe they're not really ready to sell. Maybe they're testing a price to not have to, dive in and go with the full, lockbox and MLS system.
Gotcha.
They eventually might do it, but they don't want to. And on the flip side, hey, well, those are the advantages for the seller. Great. What's the advantage for the buyer to buy off market? Well, what if you're an investor buying a fix and flip and you don't want your new buyer to know, hey, I paid $250 for it. I fixed it up. I'm trying to flip it for $475. you don't want them to know what you paid for it. The other thing is you don't want people to know what you paid for it so that it gets back to the Travis County and the property taxes. So people don't want their property taxes to go up. And that is a universal truth. Every human.
People that voted for Prop A do.
Gosh. Yeah. Well,
aside from them,
my sense is that those were a bunch of renters who thought, oh, well, I just want a free, subway ride. And they're going, well, if your rent goes up next year, that's why.
That's why.
The landlords, they just try and pass it down. But yeah, we work active MLS too, and happy to co-broke and all of those items as well. The silent market is just a niche for those particular off-market sellers that are private, and maybe they don't even have a sign, and they're just kind of testing it and doing that before they go on. So, it's like CBS, ABC, and NBC. They're different channels, and you can watch either one. So it's just a different marketing outlet. Contractually, it's still the same TAR forms and licensed forms that I use as a licensed realtor. So it's a marketing technique.
So do you really like real estate? I mean, you've been doing it for a long time.
It's fun. I enjoy it. I can kind of make my own hours. My girlfriend has one of these, 9 to 5 desk jobs where she's, I think, 8 to 5, and she's in that, kind of cubicle life. And real estate does provide upside on freedom and opportunity, and you can hit some big commissions. You can also go over for a while. So if you can learn how to live without a salary and just remember to keep working, usually you'll end up okay. But the lifestyle of it, being out and about, you're inside for half the day doing contracts, the other half, looking at property and being with people. So, and every day is a new day. So
it does seem like an interesting career.
Yeah.
I do like that it has flexibility in it on basically kind of like you're working for yourself, and you have to, make whatever you make, you got to go make.
Yeah, it's like a lever. If you really are hungry and really want to work hard, you crank that lever and you crank it and try and make as much and earn as much as you want. And then if you want to be, lazy one day or relax or go read by the pool for a little bit or just go zen out, then
go be on a podcast,
then you can go do that.
Yeah.
I think my dad really enjoyed it because when you have kids, like flexibility. See, as single people, we, kind of have got more autonomy in what we do. But I'm thinking that in future life, I remember he was able to always go to my basketball games, always coach my teams, be there to pick me up, and my mom too. But I'm thinking that will be beneficial in the future, knock on wood, if I ever have a family or go down that road.
Since you're a real estate agent, do you invest in your own real estate or not?
Well, you can you learn a lot because you're brokering and you're helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
So you are witnessing them make decisions, and you're helping them make the best decisions they can. And so you're kind of like you can see it as well, and you can learn. Oh, hey, well, this was a good decision. Maybe I should do that. And others go, well, that was a big risk on that project. I maybe wouldn't go that risky.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a window seat to the game, to the closing table, to it all. And real estate is just expensive. So it's just one of those things that is just pricey.
Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to get into real estate, but
it's not like, buying, selling Furbies on eBay,
No.
and, trading, use Michael Jordans and upselling them. It is pricey entities, and the closing costs and the commissions and selling. So it is a real thing. But I recently did buy a property with the help of my dad and my brother in San Marcos, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of describe San Marcos as the baby Austin. So if you're ever curious as to what Austin was like in the 80s and 90s, go check out San Marcos. Sleepier, college town, river, coffee shops as well.
Popular float spot,
cute girls, good energy. So if you're ever like, well, what did Austin used to be? go 30 minutes down the road and go for lunch and check it out.
You're just trying to get people to move to San Marcos instead of Austin.
It's not going to work.
Just
Denver,
kidding.
they have no property taxes. San Marcos is cheaper.
Yeah.
America has 50 states.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just wonder, why is everyone moving here? I'm going, well, does the rest of America just suck? What is going on with my hometown?
Yeah. I think it's the weather, the access to water, because Lake Austin, Lake Travis, there's a lake right here. There's a lot of lakes in Texas. I was surprised. And then that, and yeah, of course, the culture. But there are comparable cities that are pretty cool. I mean, Denver's solid. It's just kind of colder. People from Denver are like, it doesn't get that cold here. And I'm like, well, fucking shit. I've been to Denver in the winter and I was freezing my ass off. And I'm from Indiana. It probably is colder there. But still, I mean, the weather's not the same.
One thing I think, Justin, this is a point that I'm wanting to get out there, is that with all the transplants and people moving here, we're open to it, embracing it, is I wish that the new people in the transplants would bring more of their culture and their kind of energy with them. So instead of, moving to Austin and just kind of mooching or just what's already happening and existing and kind of draining off and sucking the energy off that, if in addition to enjoying those things, which they're more than welcome to do, is bring some of the good things from where you were here. So you said you were from Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the highlights or best parts about that? And say, okay, well, you're missing this food, and maybe you bring that, or maybe it's a certain type of music or art or something. But if the transplants will, bring some of them with them,
mm-hmm.
then we'll have not only our existing Austin culture, but maybe we'll find something else new and great.
Yeah, and I think that's a very great point, a great thought. For my particular situation, I mean, there's not really anything in particular that I can think about that I would want to bring from Indiana, but that doesn't mean that I couldn't still follow through on the idea and just the way that you could just enhance whatever the existing culture is, or just come up with something totally new and different, just, contribute to making the city fun and having things to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a living thing that can be morphed, like a piece of clay, like anything else. So every day things die and things can be planted. It's like a garden. So bring your own plants, bring your own ideas, and run with it.
If you weren't going to do real estate, do you know what you would do?
That is a problem with my job, is that it's very neighborhood and centric, and real estate is so geographic and location centric that you've got to be real competent and knowledgeable in certain areas. And so I tried it in New York. I got licensed in New York. It didn't transfer real well.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, we talked about the good sides of real estate. The negative is it doesn't transfer real well.
Really?
So like if you're a nurse, you can kind of be a nurse maybe in any hospital. If you're a lawyer, you can be a lawyer in that state. You can move within that state. If you're a teacher, you can move. Hell, even a bartender, a bar. So there's certain occupations that have more transferable skills. Mm-hmm. I mean, like Joe Rogan, he's a podcaster. He just moved here. So
mm-hmm.
some things are more transferable. Real estate is a little more of an expertise in having people that know the areas you're moving to or selling, and that's helpful.
I didn't think about that. I thought you could be able to take it anywhere, but you're right. I mean, New York City is a totally different market than Austin. The buyers are different, the buildings are different, everything.
Yeah, the lot values, the city's rules, the zoning regulations, the deed restrictions, what you can do. I mean, there's a more variables than you want to know. And as a realtor, that's kind of my job, is to be knowledgeable and present with perhaps future pratfalls or benefits. And that makes it geographic specific. Whereas if you just plopped me on a plane and took me to Phoenix and said, hey, go sell in Scottsdale, the sales process, yeah, I'd know, but I wouldn't know the neighborhoods in Scottsdale and the zoning and the historical appreciation rates of the neighborhood. So it can get a little wonky.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any Austin stories of all your time here off the top of your head? Any of your favorite stories?
Okay, here's one.
Mm-hmm.
So I was dating this girl in college, and she was a nice girl, and it was maybe our second or third date, and I took her to the Zilker Austin Christmas tree as a date, and we did the whole thing where we got, because the Zilker tree, you're supposed to hold hands and spin around the tree upside down and look at it, and if you've never done it, you will get dizzy as hell, and they sell like hot chocolate. And it must have been winter, and she must have just thought it was so romantic, and it is pretty cool. And she just overly, like, I think, fell in love with me, and then I guess I wasn't feeling it as well, but it didn't work out. But unfortunately, the power of the Zilker Christmas tree was too powerful. That's the story.
It put a spell on her.
Yeah, it put a spell on her, and like Mount Bonnell. If you haven't taken your friend or significant other to Mount Bonnell, that's the classic cheap affordable Austin date.
Still haven't done
Zilker tree, Laguna Gloria. So yeah, there's some classic.
What's Laguna Gloria?
Laguna Gloria is near 35th. It's kind of like an outdoor park artsy place. So yeah, that could be another article of just cheap hidden core Austin dates. Walking South Congress, that's also a classic.
Yeah. Yeah, I just was walking South Congress yesterday, and it doesn't really get old.
The drag used to be a good spot, but it's too many transients, and it's almost unsafe there now. So those used to be two of our most pedestrian kind of sightseeing.
What's the drag?
The drag is Guadalupe directly across from UT.
Okay.
So starting at 19th and MLK up until, I would say, 27th. And it's all those shops and stores that are along the drag. And it used to be where like the hippies and would kind of be hippie bums on the drag, and you'd go to college class and they'd kind of pester you or they'd be there. But recently they've gone from hippie bums to actual bums. So yeah, they're like, yeah, need some 5-0, just at least keeping tabs on them.
I feel like homelessness is getting a little worse in Austin. I think it's been slow. I mean, for the time that I've been here, it's not, but I mean, over the past year and maybe even before COVID, I feel like it got worse. Didn't they pass something that said that homeless people could basically camp like almost anywhere?
Yeah. Councilman Greg Cesar, and with the people of the council, they said that there's a camping ban ordinance that basically allows homeless people to camp anywhere.
What's the logic behind that?
Dude, I have no idea, man. It makes no sense. And I'm liberal and progressive and vote Democrat and a local Austinite. I just don't get it. I can see wanting to help them with compassion and social projects and those things, but why not just do that? Mm-hmm. Just say, hey, let's build a new center, and let's ship, bus them there, get them there, and help them out. Because just letting people linger outside with no social support and weep in their own problems, uncured, you're not helping anyone there.
Yeah, it also kind of makes people feel unsafe, and it's not really good for the city.
No, and that does worry me, because you see, the West Coast of Portland and Los Angeles and Seattle with these problems, and we hope that it doesn't permeate as badly and get here. So that is a genuine worry.
Yeah.
So if you feel differently about it, I'd recommend look up your councilman, look up. Don't just be passive. Try and do something proactive and let your feelings in a responsible way off your chest. So there's nothing wrong with that, because free speech is allowed.
Hey, FIA listeners. Just before this episode is over, I want to give you one more quick friendly reminder to please like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player. Thanks again. Are you pretty serious about local voting?
I am. Yeah, I think it's important.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years ago, the Uber and Lyft, they had some put that on the ballot that said, should they be allowed to have drivers, and should they be fingerprinted? And I think millennials and young people just straight up forgot to vote for it, and then they took ride shares away. I was like, what? This is fantastic. This is saving drunk driving. You don't need a cab. You just come straight to you. This is a fantastic invention.
I know, exactly. I couldn't believe the city of Austin did that. I lost a lot of respect for whoever's running this place when that happened.
But then they came back. So, but yeah, they say local politics are more important than national politics.
I would agree with that because it's going to make more of an impact on your daily life.
Yeah.
And there's probably a little bit less red tape. I mean, things get passed and things get implemented.
Yeah. I mean, Austin City Council is downtown. It's a beautiful new building that we've paid for. They've got an auditorium, so it's open to the public, or at least used to be. Mm-hmm. So if you want to go sit in on a meeting, then go sit in on a meeting. And if you want to say something, say something.
Yeah. So I saw that I was looking at your book, and it looks like you invested in some place called Lucky Arrow in Dripping Springs.
Yes, that is like a hotel kind of boutique place in Dripping Springs, and wedding venue, and like a hill country type place. Mm-hmm. And as wonderful as Austin is, hill country is really one of the best parts of Texas. So if you want some fresh air and social distancing at its finest, mm-hmm. then go drive out to Fredericksburg, Dripping Springs, and just the hill country in general. Bernie was pretty cool. Lockhart's got great barbecue. We already talked about San Marcos. New Braunfels is awesome.
I love Schlitterbahn, dude. In Indiana, there are not water parks of that size. So when I came here and I saw those water parks, I was like, wow, that's amazing. And it's actually really fun to go as an adult. At home, when I think of a water park, it's a bunch of little kids, and it's more for kids, you know? Mm-hmm. But here, it's like, yeah, there's kids there. But also, like, I think the adults have quite a bit of fun taking their kids to Schlitterbahn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we've got Central Texas is pretty fantastic, even up to wherever you want to go. So embrace the day trip, the weekend trip, and don't be afraid of the small towns. They're pretty enjoyable, and the people there are just as easygoing as they are here. So while Austin is wonderful, gas is cheap as hell right now. So shoot, yeah. Now go make a run. Go cruise on out to Fredericksburg or Johnson City, and go tour the LBJ. He's got a little museum out there. President grew up in Johnson City. You can go. I went and saw his house. I was like, oh man, this is sweet.
On your book, The Nation We Live In, what are some of your favorite parts of that book, or your more important points that you're making in that book?
I think I was just describing the current culture and how things were. One chapter I have in there is called The End of Human Interaction. And before COVID, I just remember the world being a much more social and friendlier place where people actually talk to each other. There was this thing called networking, and you'd go to events at 5:00 and happy hour and pass out business cards and meet clients face to face. And it was a much more, human society and world. But with the invention of these iPhones and iPads, it's great technology, but it's really shut us off from humanity. And I wrote about the end of human interaction. And even before COVID, you'd go to a coffee shop or something, and people have their head down, they're stuck in their laptop, just like a racing horse with blinders on. And that kind of saddened me a little bit, because I think believe in the glass is half full with humanity, and think people can be wonderful and have the potential to. So that was starting to worry me, but that was one chapter I think about.
I totally agree with your concern on that. I think it is a real concern. As great as social media and all that stuff is, I mean, even just I believe in remote working a big time, but also I do see the value in when you're just texting and you're on messages and meetings and stuff like that. It dehumanizes your entire team, and things start to feel more like work than they already did. And then maybe even have like little, what seems like conflicts with people that could be in your head because you're just communicating without seeing them.
Right.
And then once you see that person in person, you're like, what? There's no conflict here. Like,
you're like, oh man, this is all good. Okay. Did you sign that deal at close? Great. All right. Let's go get a beer. Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, there's a lot of bullshit or negative stuff that can come from solely communicating. online.
Yeah, that is true. Just the interaction of people face to face. Because one, you'll remember them better.
Mm-hmm.
Something about, you get or at least in my business, I get leads all the time. And so if I've met them and talked to them and met them face to face, then my chances of remembering them and caring about them and even doing a better job go up drastically versus, like you said, just, hey, can you text me about this? Can you email me about this, or a Zillow lead or something? It's that dehumanization. Once you connect with someone and, maybe it's the pheromones of, their aura and just their humanity, then it triggers something in your brain to where you remember it and you go, okay, oh, that was Steve. Oh, he had a quirky mole, something about him, a quirky mole, or, oh man, he was shorter than I thought, but oh man, he was nice, or something.
Mm-hmm.
So humanity, we've got to realize that we're on this earth together.
For sure, especially after all this election and all the division between people, and it's people need to be nicer.
Yeah. I think we'll get that way.
Yeah. So we're running close to end of time. Is there anything in particular that we haven't covered that you want to talk about, or anything that you think just would be interesting to talk about?
I'm proud of the city of Austin, and I'm proud to be a unicorn, and I like all the transplants, and overall I'm pretty happy here, but I do think we just have to remain conscious and remain awake, and if you see trends or things going down the wrong path, then to speak up and engage upon it. And I think our civic duty as citizens is to share and create the best city and town and aura we can. So don't be afraid to let people know what you're thinking, or suggestions, feedback, and that way Austin can continue to be one of the best growing cities in America. I mean, right now I think we're number 11 or number 10 in population nationwide, and Texas has 4 of the top 11 most populated cities in the country.
Yeah.
So, we're going to be big, and just embrace it and run with it. Realize that it's going to keep growing, and put your own stamp on it, and however you want, and it'll morph into the things that we think it should be.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the boat. We're in the boat together.
Yeah.
Let's just not sink it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Let's just give it some push, some sails, some green energy or gas, just something, just keep adding people and plugging along.
Cool. I love it. Well, thanks a lot for coming on, George.
Dude, thanks for having me, Justin. This is awesome. So I really appreciate you having me, and it's fun to, yuck it up and talk life and stuff. So
yeah,
I definitely approve. I would come on again.
Cool. Yeah, I'd have you again. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I will.